We're gonna take our seats and let love run the show. Thank you.
You can leave that for me. I need the stool too.
Injured foot.
Oh, thank you so much, Sky. I love that, right? Let love run the show. I'm going to take a seat. How many people in here needed to take a seat today? Oh. So we are in week 5 of our book study on Discover Your Divinity, which, if anyone is interested, the books have come back in, so they're available in the bookstore again. And we've been looking at the foundational principles that support this very, very powerful, transformative prayer process that is affirmative prayer. And we have been looking at the prayer process itself. So if this is your first Sunday, just roll with me, okay? There will be something for you to be able to take away. You can absolutely watch the previous talks. They're on our YouTube channel if it interests you and you want to know more about what we're talking about. But at the heart of it all, affirmative prayer is how Unity holds it and understands it, is that we are realigning with our true nature so that we can consciously live from our divinity. Taking a seat, meaning that our small, limited human perception, which I love very dearly. Do you love your human self? I love my human self. But I'm going to let my human self take a seat so that I can access what Clay spoke to so beautifully with his inspirational reading, the wisdom that is available to me. That is, as Unity understands it, is our actual birthright. So there's nothing you need to do. You don't have to become anything. Phew, let that go. You already are it. Isn't that a relief? It's like you're already it. It's just what is standing in your own way from actually acknowledging and living from the truth of who you actually are. And so the heart of affirmative prayer is this idea that we start from God is, this big idea of God, and then we make it useful, because what's the point if it isn't useful to us in time and in space? And we pick one thing that God is that would be useful right now. Maybe it's zeal, maybe it's light, maybe it's love, maybe it's wholeness, maybe it's joy. And we say, I am that. And because I am that, that means that I can heal. I can be strong in the face of what seems to be an intractable situation. I can actually access that which knows that healing is happening right now. So God is, I am, therefore I can. Let's everybody say that together. God is, I am, therefore I can. Can you feel how that kind of flows? And what we're accessing is the spiritual truth of who we are, right? We are 100% human and we are 100% divine. Welcome to the divine paradox. Really, that's what it is. So what we're accessing in the I can, I have, I know is our spiritual awareness that we can bring to our human experience. And what we're doing is we're changing ourselves. We're not changing the world out there. We are changing our consciousness right here so that we are personally empowered. I can't sit while I talk about this stuff. Just doesn't work. So the prayer flow itself is, I open to a new understanding, because the first thing we have to do is be willing to change, yes? Yeah. Then we recognize God is, and we say what would be useful. love would be useful right now. I know that I am love because I'm not separate from God. And therefore, if I'm love, that means that I can be a harmonizing presence in the world. It means that I can see and know love is available at all times, regardless of how antagonistic the relationship may seem. I can remember that the person who I am feeling that tension with is love themselves. Can you feel how that becomes something active that we can do? And then we appreciate not a thank you, God, for like waving a magic wand. Unity does not believe in a Santa Claus God, right? We believe that there is beingness, and we are that beingness. And by transforming our own consciousness, we are actually standing in our Christ Buddha isness nature. And when we do that, we heal. Not only ourselves, but we heal the world. So what we appreciate is not some power out there, but we appreciate that we have shifted. We have a new understanding. We are moving through the world from a place of awareness of our spiritual nature and of everybody else's spiritual nature. Can you feel how powerful that is? So Linda and I talk about it as a flow because it's an unfurling. We start tight. Oh, I'm really angry at my brother. And by the way, my brother and I get along really well. I had a couple people come up to me and say, "Are you fighting with your brother?" Like, no, this is just an example. So you start off really tight, and then as you move through the prayer flow, it opens us up into the potential, the infinite possibility that is the truth of who we actually are. The purpose of affirmative prayer is to align with whatever divine principle will meet, heal, and transform a false sense of separation. We focus the purpose of the prayer on what we want to realize and experience. How much time do we spend focused on what we don't want? Worry, concern, anxiety, what we don't want. What we do in affirmative prayer is consciously focus on what we want to realize and experience. So, this is what we're going to talk about today. What about when prayer doesn't seem to be working? Anybody in here relate to this? Right? When prayer just doesn't seem to, it's like, I'm doing it, aren't I doing it? Why isn't it showing up? Why isn't it here? What's going on? Why? So, there are 5 big buckets that can stand in the way between what is actually happening within us and how it's trying to manifest in time and in space. Outlining, the collective consciousness, the energy hump, which I did talk about a couple weeks ago, lack of specificity, and then magical thinking, right? So let's break them down. So outlining is where we are being so specific about our desire that we have outlined it so particularly that there is no room for us to see any other possibility. We are incapable of seeing beyond our limited view. So the example that I have shared with you multiple times about when I outlined was when I was sitting in prayer, asking for guidance. I saw myself dressed in ministerial robes, and my perspective was so limited that I thought that I was going to play a minister on TV because I was an actor. I didn't. Right? Can you feel that? I mean, it was clear as day that I was being shown what my divine purpose was, and I could not see it. And instead, I followed this path of deep, deep suffering, right? When it was time for me to shift from being a professional actor into something else, I suffered. because my perspective was so limited. I had outlined it. The only thing that would mean that my prayers were answered was if I got a role. Other than that, prayer wasn't working. So, does outlining make sense to everyone? What we want to look for when we want to outline is we want to look for what's the spiritual principle behind it. So another classic example we use in New Thought is somebody comes and says, I want a red Maserati. Now, is that outlining? Oh, yeah. Like, only a red Maserati, nothing else will do, right? But what we want to do is look beneath that. What does the red Maserati symbolize? Symbolize freedom, right? Does it symbolize whatever, right? Strength, power, authority, whatever it is. That's what you want to access within yourself, right? Divine transportation rather than the red Maserati. Because here's the thing, you may think you want a red Maserati, but if it showed up, could you actually pay for the insurance? Could you actually pay for the maintenance, right? So trusting what's under it is what you want to be refocusing yourself around. And it's hard to not outline, right? I mean, I want to be really clear. Like, we want what we want, but understand that that's your human nature wanting something, and that affirmative prayer is not about getting stuff. Affirmative prayer is about shifting our consciousness so we can bring spiritual capacity into our life experience. Yeah? Okay. Collective consciousness. This is big. This is really big. So we've talked about how our own thoughts and beliefs sort of fall in and help create what that experience is that we might be having in the world. You know, the things we learned as a kid, the myth, messages, and beliefs that we carry around about ourselves, about the world. There is also a collective consciousness. There is a collective consciousness that is carrying a lot of weight. And so I often say to people, if you feel like what you're trying to work through feels really, really heavy, it's not just because you're trying to shift your own beliefs. It's because you are healing the collective consciousness at the same time. That's our work. I mean, I honestly believe that this is our work. Our personal consciousness and how it refracts itself through the collective consciousness is why we're here. As we grow, as we evolve, as we heal, in the collective consciousness, it grows, it heals. But the collective consciousness is always going to be behind because it's an average of everything. An average, it's the mediocre of everything, right? It's not the highest and best, it's not the lowest and worst. So part of what we are all navigating is the collective consciousness. In Myrtle Fillmore's time, the collective consciousness believed that tuberculosis was genetic and that it was incurable. That was the collective consciousness. That's what everybody believed. Nowadays, we have the big C, right? We have all sorts of things that we're in agreement on. If you want an example of collective consciousness, just look at the stock market. All that is whether a group of people believe that the stock is going to go up or the stock is going to go down. And that's why the economy can be doing horrible, but the stock market is flourishing. Because it's actually about this collective consciousness. And you know, collective consciousness is powerful. So when you sort of are coming up against something, just breathe into the fact that you're never alone. You're never alone. Whatever it is that makes you feel so separate and so alone and so isolated, it's not true. There are millions, billions of people on this planet who are right where you are, right at that same edge. I invite them in. When I'm struggling, I invite them to sit with me. I invite the people who have already gotten on the other side of it to sit with me, right? Don't ignore the collective consciousness. but know that we have the power to transform the collective consciousness. And then we have the energy hump. Now, I talked about this, right? Where we're coming from this big ideal land, and then we want it to actually manifest in time and in space. And Linda and I sometimes call it trouble at the border, right? And how many people in here have experienced that? We have these great ideas, and you're so excited, and you sort of have stuff happening, and then it just kind of fizzles out and never actually fully manifests. Anybody in here relate to that? That's because there wasn't enough energy to move through that energy hump. And even if you just think about how an idea is like moving really, really fast, but something that's actually solid, this is moving a lot slower, right? Energetically, it's a lot slower to actually create something. So again, be compassionate with yourself, right? We don't have to get frustrated. We have to acknowledge, there's some trouble at the border here. Because I've got this vision clear as day, and I can feel what I'm supposed to do and how I'm supposed to show up in it, and yet something is preventing the actual manifestation. The other thing that Linda and I talk about is that, yes, it requires some energy to actually manifest something, but take a breath with me. We actually resist manifestation. We actually resist it. We actually don't necessarily, truly, fully want to move from thought into form. Because what will that mean? Change. Transform, right? You cannot be the same at the end of it. So there's a natural resistance to the actual manifestation of something. So again, being aware as the fears come up. We don't ignore our fears here. We don't ignore them. We don't dismiss them. We bring them in. And we say, come sit with me in this larger garden of truth that we're going to live in. Lack of specificity. This is a big one, and I have talked about this over the past couple weeks. So generalizing can result in a temporary sense of peace and well-being that is comforting but fleeting. When we have an awareness of a divine principle but don't activate the principle in time and space in some real concrete way, it remains just an idea. So here are some examples. So this is the manufactured argument with my brother, right? I am love, so we're the purpose, my brother and I are fighting, I'm afraid we're never gonna speak again. I am accessing the power of love. And so in example 1, I say, I am love, and so all my relationships are loving. In example 2, I say, I am love, and I speak as love, and Tommy and I stop fighting. Example 3, I am love, and I speak as love, actively look for love, and act from love in all my relationships. I know that love is present between Tommy and me, no matter how angry we both may seem. Can you feel the difference? So number 1 is very general, comforting, but general. There's no activation in time and in space. Number 2, we're going to talk to in a minute, is magical thinking, right? We have no way to control my brother and what his experience is and what he does or doesn't do, right? And then number 3, can you feel how it leaves us in a place of empowerment, regardless of what my brother is giving back to me? That's where we want to sort of invite ourselves into. So we want to take a look and just see, where are we being general? Because again, when we're being general, it's because there's a part of us that's afraid of actually becoming something, of actually living into something. Magical thinking, this is the God is a vending machine, Santa Claus, right? Fairy godmother, gonna wave the wand. So Tommy and I stopped fighting. Can you feel how that's just magical thinking? That may be what I want in my heart of hearts, but I have no control over whether Tommy wants to continue fighting with me or not. The only thing I have power over is my own sense of how I am going to exist in the relationship. So remember, affirmative prayer is not about manipulating the world to meet our needs. Affirmative prayer is about growing in our spiritual capacity so that we can meet anything that is arising in time and in space. Can you feel the difference? So, when magical thinking, we miss that we're the ones invited to change. We are expecting instead the world should change and suit our needs. And what it is all about, magical thinking, is about avoiding our own growth and transformation. Do you see the theme here? When prayer doesn't seem to be working, it's because on some level there is resistance to growth and transformation. Now, maybe it's that we can't let go of our story, right? As Sky sang so beautifully, right? We're not willing to sit down. Our attachment to something is so deep and so powerful that we don't even want to sit down. And that's okay. Everyone take a breath. It's okay. You're not expected to transform yourselves overnight into the Christ being who's walking around turning water into wine. This is a process of revelation that we are saying yes to. And as you work the process, there is a moment of instantaneous transformation that arises, but it doesn't come out of nowhere. It comes out of the work that you have been doing to uncover all those beliefs that have been penning you in to such a small existence. Outlining collective consciousness, the energy hump, lack of specificity, and magical thinking. Now, we offer these because what happens often is people are so frustrated, like it's not working, and they think that the affirmative prayer process doesn't work, avoiding growth and transformation, rather than looking at how they're being invited to engage with the affirmative prayer process in a different way. Can you feel that? So I've shared how I broke my back when I was 26, 25? I can't even remember anymore, I'm so old. I think I was 25, actually. Broke my back, was told I was going to be in chronic pain for the rest of my life, was told that there was nothing they could do, was told they wanted to stick metal rods in my spine and all this other stuff. And I heard the no. Every cell of my being was like, no, that is not going to be the truth of my beingness. That's a no. And it took 6 years of chronic pain before I was able to get on the other side of the pain. But I still had on my back about an inch protrusion on my back where the break had happened and the bone sort of jutted out on my back. And somehow, while I could hold that I could shift neurons and pain sensors, and I could do that kind of work in my prayer work, I was stuck when it came to bone. I didn't think that bone could move, right? I didn't believe that bone was capable of reimagining itself. So, and I'm going to come back to this story, right? Hold that story right where it is, because I'm going to come back to this story about my back. Because what we're talking about is the difference between change and transformation. Now, the people who were at the Key Leader event this weekend, you heard some of this, right? I loved what they said, right? They used the difference between change and transition. I'm going to call it the difference between change and transformation, right? And the question that we were all asked yesterday was, where in your life are you simply rearranging the furniture? Change. And you're just rearranging the furniture, but you're not actually transforming. You're not actually stepping into a new understanding of who you truly are. And that's what this affirmative prayer process is designed to support. Our capacity to get past just rearranging the furniture, which may feel like a refresher, but it doesn't actually shift anything that's actually happening in our life, to the place where we actually step into true transformation, where we are not the same on the other side of it. So this prayer process, which is at the end of chapter 9, I think, this prayer practice saved my life, so I'm offering it to you, right? I don't know about you, but I have a very loud voice in my head that is always talking back. So if I say, love is all there is, there was this little voice in my head going, really? Right? Really loud, little sneaky little voice, right? My cynic is what I call it, right? My cynic. And so this is a personal prayer practice. It's just for you to do with yourself, to acknowledge and transform those limiting beliefs that you have. And it really does start by being willing to listen for that little voice, to listen for the feelings that might be coming up as you try to align with truth. And here's the kicker: they're not going to feel spiritual. They're not. This is your worst fears. These are the things that don't align. These are the things you actually are not. And so when we get into a spiritual teaching, we don't want to acknowledge the part of us that thinks that it's hopeless. We don't want to acknowledge the parts of us that think that, it's all going to hell, because that's not spiritual. This prayer practice is designed to help you move through, because we cannot ignore what is actually alive in us. Can you feel the truth of that? We can't ignore what's actually happening. You can say affirmations till you're blue in the face about how beautiful you are, about how whole you are, about how magnificent you are. And if there is an underlying belief that you don't matter, it won't matter how many affirmations you say. So the prayer process works like this. This is my prayer. I'm sharing my backstory. Remember my back? I can't deal with bone, right? The pain is always going to be there. It's always going to impact my life in some way. That was really where I was. So the affirmation, this is a great affirmation, right? In a prayer. I know that I am whole and perfect, and my body temple reflects this truth. Sounds lovely, doesn't it? Well, what I heard was, as I said that, what I heard was, but I broke my back. My body temple does not really reflect wholeness and perfection, and it never will. Now, I can't ignore that. I don't want to ignore that. I can't heal what I'm ignoring. If there's a part of me that thinks I will never heal, then guess what? I'm never going to heal. So, you meet whatever is arising with another statement of truth. Remember I said this? Nothing can stand in opposition to truth. There is no false belief that you have about yourself that is stronger than the truth of your divine identity. And you may have to argue with yourself for a while in order to get there, but that is the truth. So see how I argued with myself? See everything that I had to say to meet that part of me? I know that possibility is always available. That's a spiritual principle. Any old beliefs, those old ideas that this body is not whole and perfect, that it can't be whole and perfect, I illuminate with the light of truth. I hold them in love, because we don't need to be nasty with the parts of ourselves that we're transforming. And I allow truth to dissolve these false beliefs into the nothingness from which they came. They are not truth. Can you hear my negations? They have no power in my life. There is only one power, and it is love, and it is light, it is wholeness. Well, then what I hear is it would take a miracle for me to be fully healed. I don't ignore that, right? It would take a miracle. I know the divine expresses in ways that seem like miracle, in ways that seem impossible, only because I have forgotten how powerful I am. I am powerful. I know that wholeness is always seeking to express as my life, and I allow it right now. I say yes to the miracle. Well, now this would convince me, but it didn't convince me back then. Part of me said, is a miracle really possible? But can you feel how there's a shift now? Is a miracle really possible? Something in me is being worn away by the truth of what I know. Again, right? Argue with yourself. Don't be afraid to argue with yourself. Anything and everything is possible in the infinite field of divine mind. I choose what is possible right now. My body, temple, is the perfect outpicturing of the divine idea of wholeness. There is only this truth. There are no opposites to spiritual truth. Can you see how I'm convincing myself of something? It's good. That's what you want to do. So I now declare that all my old beliefs that no longer serve have no power over me. They have no authority. They are nothing, no thing. I am whole. I am perfect. I am healed. I am the miracle. And that was the moment of realization. I am the miracle. I am the miracle. Yes, I am the miracle. That affirmation got me through 6.5 years of chronic pain. I am the miracle. But can you feel how it was real for me? Because I worked through all of my arguments. I worked through all of the ways that I was trying to prove to myself that I wasn't worthy of wholeness, of healing. And what I arrived at was I am the miracle. And you know what was so fascinating is that I eventually let go of whether or not the pain stayed or went. Because that wasn't the point anymore. I wasn't fixated on the outcome. I was fixated on the idea that I am the miracle, and how is my body going to show up as that miracle? I was a fight choreographer. I used to use swords and blades and punch people and throw myself across the stage doing flips and somersaults. I did that because I am the miracle, right? This is what's available to us. This process is a process of healing the deepest false beliefs that you are carrying about yourself so that you can step into something. Now, did I get there right away? No, it took 6 years and the pain finally left. And then it took 32 years for me to have a spontaneous healing with the bone. I slipped down a flight of stairs, and I felt something go crack. And all of a sudden, my heart was open, and my rib cage was open, and I felt my back, and the protrusion is completely gone. Happened 1.5 years ago, right? But that didn't happen just spontaneously, woohoo. That was 32 years of shifting my consciousness, of eroding away the idea that somehow bone is different than neurons. It was asking something of me, right? That I had to keep evolving and growing. So sometimes when we think prayer isn't working, it is. It may not be working on your timetable. I would have liked that protrusion to have gone away, the day after the injury, right? But the prayer life that I was in the midst of was working. Now, I want to be really clear here, too, that we are not praying for an outcome. There's a difference between healing and a cure. We are all going to die of something. People, breathe with me. Okay? We're all going to die die from something. Okay? And I know that's hard. I know that that's like, ugh. But we have to embrace that too, because that's a fear that's blocking us. It's a fear that's blocking us from living fully into our potential right now. There is only right now. This is it. What are you going to make of this life right now? Are you still rearranging furniture? Because it makes you feel like you're doing something? Are you willing to step into that deeper level of healing? Pretending something isn't active in your life is not true healing. It is by meeting our worries, doubts, and fears with truth that we heal. And I'm going to share this quote from Myrtle one more time. If the light of understanding does not manifest as swiftly as you expect, do not be discouraged. The truths you plant are as seeds that are growing in the soil of your consciousness, and they are bound to bring forth their harvest so that your whole consciousness will be illumined, spiritualized, transformed. This is the truth of what we are saying yes to. To be able to access the spiritual capacities that we are. So that even if I was in chronic pain my whole life, what are the capacities I bring to that situation? Because I have it within me to meet that. I know there are people in this community that do it every day. Because we are that powerful. Can you feel that? All right, let's take this into a time of meditation. Jeremy, if you can come on up. Now I'm going to sit. So the invitation, the question, where are you rearranging your furniture? Where have you been resisting true transformation for whatever reason? And just allow that space, that place to grow in your awareness. And just notice what those feelings are. Maybe there's some fear or some doubt or some worry, some anxiety. Maybe there's some hopefulness. Maybe there's some longing. And as you allow all of that, the feeling nature that is so intrinsic to our belief systems, to make itself known, the invitation is to just meet it with love right now. Cradle it in love, hold it in love, bathe it in love, hug it with love, whatever this means to you. But just meet yourself, all of yourself, with love and light. And invite this question: who have I come here to be? What am I here to express and to show up as in time and in space? What is the next revelation of my being? Let's just rest here for a few minutes in the silence as we listen to the wisdom that we actually are. And And as you catch a glimmer of who you've come here to be, what would be useful for you right now? Joy, strength, zeal, light, love, power, beauty, harmony. What would be useful for you? And just know this, God is whatever's useful for you right now. I am whatever is useful for you right now. So that means that you can. How can you show up in true transformation? We bless everything that is arising. We bless this perfect unfoldment. We bless the innate wisdom that is our true nature and our true name. And we know that it continues to guide, to support in all ways, at all times, our wisdom speaking in ways that our human self can understand. Just opening our hearts in gratitude for our capacity to be made new. And so it is. Amen. Ashe.